Hi everyone, welcome to my new YouTube series. In this series, we are going to learn how to use FastAPI and SQL model to build a production-grade API. And throughout the course, we are going to be building an AI PDF chatbot that lets you chat with your documents using AI and several other things. We are not going to be building the client, we are just going to be building the backend for this, as you can see. We are going to be touching topics like authentication, processing of documents in the background tasks. We're going to be touching topics like uploading of documents, sending of emails, and streaming AI responses back to your clients. To continue with this course, you need to have basic knowledge of Python and you need to be familiar with the command line interface. Let's get started with this tutorial. First things first, we have to set up our environment. And to set up our environment, we are going to be using UV. In case you don't know what UV is a Python project manager. It's like a modern day pib. To initialize your project with UV, you just have to type in UV in it. And once you've run that, UV should create 4 different files for you. The 2 important files you'll be using here is the main.py and the pyproject.tml. The pyproject.tml is just like a requirements.txt. It contains the name of the project, the version, and other necessary information for this particular project. We also have the dependencies list, where in this place you are going to see the list of every package you install to this project using UV. The second file now is the main.py. This main.py file contains basic Hello World app UV as it was written. We can remove that by just doing this. All right, now to get started writing FastAPI, we need to install FastAPI. And to install FastAPI, you can come here and use UV. You just do UV add, then FastAPI standard. The standard here means we want to install FastAPI with the standard list of package FastAPI recommends. Basically the core packages. And on running this, UV should create a virtual environment for you if you have none before. And your pyproject.tml, you see that FastAPI has been updated here. And you see that you have a .venv file here. Inside of your VS Code, you need to activate this virtual environment and tell VS Code that this is the virtual environment you want to use. And to do that is as simple as coming here to click on this button and selecting second brain if you see it here. Or if not, you could come here, browse. Once you browse, click on the venv scripts and then Python. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead to create our first FastAPI app. To create a FastAPI app, you have to first import FastAPI from FastAPI. So that's as simple as doing from FastAPI. Import FastAPI like this. Once FastAPI has been imported, you can now go ahead to initialize the app. And initializing the app is as simple as creating a variable. You can give that variable any name. You can call that variable app, and we say app equals to FastAPI we are just imported, and then we are going to like call it like creating like initializing a function. This FastAPI class takes in several things. It takes in the title of the project. Let's give this second brain. It also takes in version and so many other things. 1.0.0, and we could add so many other things here. We have the description, we have the docs URL and every other thing. But for this project, we'll just leave it like this, as it is by default, and run the app. To run this simple FastAPI app we have created now, we can come to our terminal and use UV to run it. You just have to do UV run FastAPI. This FastAPI CLI was installed when we installed was installed together with the FastAPI standard packages. So if you have not installed the standard packages, you should not have the CLI on your laptop. So you do UV run FastAPI dev, and then the name of the file we are trying to run, the file that contains our app variable, which is main.py. Here you can just do UV run FastAPI dev main.py. And on running that, FastAPI should run our server for us on port 8000. So to access the server, you have to go to your local host port 8000. You can just do that by opening our browser and heading to a new tab, 127.1000. All right, so you should see that first things first, we get a JSON response in the default route, and then this JSON response is basically telling us that this particular route we are trying to access is not found. All right, now that we have our simple FastAPI app, you should also understand that FastAPI comes with automatically generated documentation. And to access the documentation, all you just have to do is to come to this same route and add /docs behind it. So /docs should take you to the generated FastAPI app, FastAPI Swagger documentation. We also have another documentation as /redoc, but most people would want to use the Swagger documentation. So FastAPI automatically comes with two kinds of documentation: the Swagger documentation and the redoc documentation. You could change things like this using the title argument the title keyword argument as I told you before. You can come here and say the title is equals to second brain. And come here and reload. So you see we have second brain here. See our title has also been updated. If you change the version from here as well, you see our current version, and once we reload, you see our version has been updated. We also add a description. AI PDF Chatbot. So yeah, you see that here. But for this particular episode, the important thing for us to just do is to just go ahead and create a simple API project just to learn the basics and fundamentals of FastAPI. So we are going to be doing a user crud application to learn FastAPI here. And yeah, let's get started. Alright, so first things first, I want to create a list of fake users that are going to test the API with. And for each of our users, we have the ID, which is going to be an integer. We have the name. The name is going to be a string. This could be anything. Polygon too. Then we also have the age, which could be anything as well. So let me say 19 here. All right, perfect. Now we have the list of all our fake users, and now we can go ahead to create our first route. So the very first route we want to create, we want to call it the /users route. In case you are not used to working with web development, they are not used to working in the browser. Basically, a route is like a path to a function, a pointer to a function in your FastAPI app. So a route could be /users, and basically what you're saying is when someone goes to this /users, you want Python, you want FastAPI to run this particular function. So you can say /user will run get users or list users, anything you want to call it. Then you can have /home, which could return a simple dictionary. It could return anything you want to return. All right, let's create our first route here. And to create our first route, basically we just type in this code as I have it in. You app.get. So with 3 lines of code, we've created our first API route. And let me explain to you what we did here. So first things first, we did at app.get. This app symbol basically means we are calling a decorator, and we can do that by doing at app.get. This get here stands for a method. So if you are not familiar with HTTP, we have several methods. We have the get method for retrieving something from the server. So since we want to retrieve the list of users, we are going to use get here. And then inside of this method, once we call it, you have to pass in the particular path where on the API should they hit for us to run this particular project. So you say, right, once they hit the /users route, we should run this particular function. So this function is an asynchronous function. We'll get to talking more about async later in the video. So this function is an asynchronous function, and what we just do is we return users here. If you go back to your documentation and you reload, you should see that we automatically have a new route here. Before it was empty, now we have something new here. And when you open it, you see it has no description, it just has the list users, the name of our function here. And once you try it out, click on try it out button and press execute. See, all right, we get in our response body, we get the list of users back. So basically, this is the automatic documentation FastAPI creates for you. And checking on the documentation, you see we have parameters. Normally here is release the different kind of parameters we could pass to this particular route. Also, it gives you an example on how to run this route with URL. It gives you the URL for this route, the request URL. Once you run it, you should see the response body and the response headers. We also have different kind of responses, so 200 successful response, and we can edit these as we want later. All right, so let's test this out outside of the Swagger documentation. To test that, you can just do 127.0. But instead of going to /docs, you just go to /users now. And here we have a list of users returned to us by this our code. So under the hood, basically what Python does is what FastAPI does is FastAPI takes this our Python dictionary and helps us convert it to JSON and returns it as a JSON value to our client. All right, let's talk about query parameters now. So now we are getting a list back of our users. Sometimes we might want to manipulate the data we get back. We might want to filter it. See, all right, we want to get users with age of 20 and above. If we want to limit it to get only 2 results, only the last 2 results, if we want to do so many other things. So first things we are going to be doing is we are going to be doing a simple search here. So I want to say, all right, we use our list users endpoints, we want to be able to search the users by the name. And to do that for us now, with FastAPI is as simple as coming to your function definition and accepting a keyword argument. So these arguments, you have to give the argument a name. The name is whatever the query parameter is going to be called. So you can call this search. And then you have to also tell FastAPI, all right, this query parameter we are expecting is of a type of string. But then, because this query parameter is not compulsory, it's not supposed to be compulsory, it's not necessary, it's not mandatory. We can do search is equals to string, is of type of string, or none. And then if nothing is passed, we want to default it to none. So basically, with this now, FastAPI knows that search is supposed to be a query parameter that we're expecting. It could either be string or it could be none. If nothing is passed, we want to use none by default. If we come back to our this thing here, nothing really changes. But if you go to our Swagger UI, you should see a simple change here now. We now have a parameter that is supposed to be passed. And here you see query here, and you see the type here, string or null. If nothing is passed, it still works. And if something is passed, it still works though. But then you see now, FastAPI automatically helps us attach it to be behind this thing. And we can confirm that we are getting this particular query parameter by printing it out here. So you can say, all right, let's print out search is going to be search like this, just to confirm that this works. So once we run this, we see search is HSGGS. All right, now you can do a simple you can write a simple logic to search our users by their name. But then before we go back into that, let me give you another example. So for instance, let's say we wanted to receive another query parameter here called limit. But then this time limit is supposed to be an integer here. So the limit is an integer or it is none. Sorry, limit is an integer, limit is compulsory. but then we'll give it the default value of like 10. So we want to always return maximum of 10 users at once. But in our case where we don't have up to 10 users, let me do 2. We want to return a maximum of 2 users at once. So if we come here now, we can do print limit. Let's do here. If we read our Swagger documentation, you see we have a limit of integer with a new query parameter called limit with type integer, and default value here is 2. Try it out without adding anything. It helps automatically add 2 here, and then we execute. So nothing happens here, but we come here, we see 2 is printed for us here. We could also test it out by just coming here /users and adding limit equals 2 like that, and that's what. So now what if the user passes a string to this limit instead of an integer? What happens? So you see automatically FastAPI is smart enough to know that we want this limit, this particular query parameter to be a string, sorry, an integer, not a string. It tries changing it to, tries changing the value passed to an integer. And while changing it, it found an error. Z type int passing the location query limit, and then the message input should be a valid integer. And then unable to pass string as an integer. Then what input do we get? We got SGHE. So FastAPI is very smart. It tells us automatically validate inputted data using Pydantic in the background. You don't need to know what Pydantic does, but just have to know that whenever you use type int like this, FastAPI by default will help you automatically enforce the type, enforce the particular type you want to get. So now we've accepted these 2 variables. Let's use them. Let's actually use them. And to do that, now what we just have to do is we come here. We say for the search, we say we have results here. The result is like this. I'll say for user and users, if user.get name if this our query, our search query here, in user.get name, we want to do results.append result.append that particular user. So this should only happen if search is provided. So you can just do if search. Then we do this. If search is not none, and we're going to run this particular stuff and return it. And at the end of the day, we want to return result that's here. We can also say else. So if it is not recommended, we can return our list of users directly here. So by default, let's say we want to search for John. I want to get only the one with John. So now we are saying none. I think probably because we are comparing let me log it out so you guys can see what's happening. So I'll do I want to do log search. I want to go log user.get name. So we do print search print username. So you see we have John. So we are comparing John, small John to capital John here. And to fix that, what we just have to do is to do if search.lower user.get.lower. See, we have John Doe, we have Bob Johnson. We change this to Jane. We'll change this to do a common username, and then we have John Doe, we have Jane Doe, and so on like that. We can also do the same thing for the limits, but I'd rather not just get into the logical part of that for this particular tutorial. The main goal is to learn the different fundamentals and basics to FastAPI. So now that we know what query parameter is, another very interesting topic we have to touch on is the path parameter. So what happens? What if you want to get a particular user with an ID? To do that, you just have to just create a new route, and basically that route is going to receive a variable of user ID. So how do you do that? In your at app.get, in the path parameter, you just have to put the variable inside of a curly braces. Notice that we don't have an F here, it's not formatted string. Instead, it's just normal URL with a normal string with the path parameter inside of the curly braces. Now our function that we run whenever we hit this particular URL, it has to accept that path parameter. So we will get user ID. I'm going to say, all right, we want to get user ID. Also, the same way FastAPI enforce type for query parameter, FastAPI can also enforce type for your path parameter. But at first, we're not going to start with type enforcing. Then we're just going to return user ID is equals to whatever user ID was passed. So if you come back to our Swagger this thing here, you see we have a new endpoint, a new route that is here. And once we expand it to see, try it out to see if you get user ID, which is of an any type. So if we could pass anything into it now and it works. If we said, all right, now FastAPI, this is our user ID. Since the user ID in our users is an integer, we can just call in user ID is of type integer, and we reload. We see, all right, now try it out. Our user ID is now an enforced integer type. If we try to put string into this, Swagger would not even let us submit. But then we can try that by coming here /users/ so you see we get not found. Okay, I think the issue is here. It's supposed to be users, not using. So right, you see now we type /users/ path parameter. It says, all right, we're expecting an integer for user ID. If we change that to 1 now, it works. But then if we change this to a string, even an integer should work for that. What just automatically change our integer to a string for us. So you see that. So whenever I put string here, or you not put anything at all, change it automatically to a string. You could also put a boolean here. Once that if you put a boolean, you have to put a value that FastAPI can convert to a boolean here. If you reload, you see 1 here is true. If you put 0, 0 is false. If you put true, it's going to be true as well. If you put false, it's going to be false. All right, now that we have that out of the way, let us make this work as per our logic. So you do get user, we are going to accept user ID. User ID is an integer. You can say, all right, for user in users, what to do if user dot get ID is equals to user ID, we want to return that particular user. Else, if we want to just return error, we want to say not found, like this. If we come here, we reload, it's not letting us because we had passed false there. We put 1, we have John Doe. We put 2, we have Jane Doe. We put 4, we have Bob Johnson. We put 5, a number that doesn't exist, 6, a number that doesn't exist, we have error, we have not found. Let's do that from the Swagger URL. Let's come here and put 6 instead of 5. Execute to see detail not found like this. So, all right. So now that we have that in place, we just come here, let's put 5 to confirm that this works as expected. 4, That doesn't work. We put 3 in here, execute. That doesn't work as well. Saying not found. I think because because you have slash user here before. Now let's reload, and if you try it out, we try 6 again and execute, and this should tell you 200 for error not found. Put 4 here, you get a status code of 200 are found. So I don't know if you are seeing an issue here. Whenever we have a not found error with HTTP, we don't want to return a 200 status code. 200 means successful. You can see it's a successful response. But 6 is not successful. 6 is not found in our user list. For us to change that, we need to return an error. We need to return a status code of 404. And to do that here, what you just have to do is to come in from FastAPI, you have to import HTTP exception. And here, instead of returning an error like this, you have to raise. You know that you're not returning, you are raising an error. You are raising an HTTP exception error. And this HTTP exception takes in 2 or 3 different arguments. It takes the status code, detail, and the headers. The one we're going to be passing now is the status code and the detail. So for the status code, FastAPI also comes with an helper for status. So you can just come here and import it like this. So once that is imported, you can come here and say status code is equals to status dot. And once you've added dots here, you should get the list of the different status code we have here. You can press Ctrl space to bring that out in case you do not see it automatically. Then we search 404 like this, H404. So we have HTTP 404 not found, and we select that as our error code. Then also here, we want to also give it a little bit of detail. We want to say user not found. We say to just make it more personal, user with ID and whatever ID was passed, whatever user ID was passed, not found. And then if you come here to run this now, execute this, see now we have a 404 error instead of just a 200 error with a detail of user with ID 6 not found. If you come here and reload, we also have a 404 error here, which is telling you user with ID 6 not found. You cannot really know the status code of the error yet. That's why we are using Swagger to confirm that. All right, now that we have query parameters and path parameters out of the way, let's go ahead to posting data to the API server. Since the beginning of this tutorial, we've been discussing more on the get endpoints. We've been working more on the get endpoint. Now I want to create our first post endpoint. The post method is used to accept data from our client. So when you are getting a data, you want to use the get method. Receiving a data, you want to use the post method. So you do post like this, and we're going to use /users, just like what we had before. So now FastAPI is smart enough to know that this one is a get /user. So whenever the method is get, we should run this particular function. Whenever the method for this /user is in post, you should run the function which is below it. So you're just going to do the exact same way you do the list users, the exact same way you do this. You want to do that here. So create user. Then you need to return, let's just return the message for now. User created. Once that's done, you come here, you see we have a new listing, but now it's green, it's post, but now I'm not receiving any parameter. To create a new user, obviously we need information about this user. FastAPI has it comes bundled with something they call Pydantic. With Pydantic, you can tell FastAPI, all right, this is the information I want to get from this particular user. From the client, and then it's going to validate whatever information, whatever body they're passing with this thing. They're passing with the API endpoint. It's going to validate that against what we have created. So to create a Pydantic schema for validation, you have to do from Pydantic import base model. And then with this base model here, we can come here and create a new class. We can call it user create. Basically, want to create a new user, and user create now. It's going to take in a base model. After that, it's going to inherit base model, and then we now have to set in the different values we expect for user. So we expect to get name. Name is supposed to be a string and it's compulsory. Expect to get age also. Age is supposed to be an integer. The ID, we are going to automatically create that by ourselves. So now if you come here and you reload create user, you see we are still not getting anything because we have not told this route that all right, I want to get a data, a body of user create. So to do that, we can just come here and we're going to say data. And then this user create we have just added, we are going to use it as a type instead. So we have to do data is the type of user created. And then here we just want to return whatever we had gotten from data. And if you come here and reload now, you see we have our stuff is different. Try it out. We don't have a parameter, but then we have a required request body which takes in name and string. So Pydantic API automatically generates documentation. FastAPI automatically generate documentation based off of this your Pydantic model that I have created here. So now you see right, we are getting name. You can say name is Shazy like this. And then we're saying age now. Let's just try to put in a number, a string for the age, execute. You see, what did FastAPI tell us? FastAPI told us that we have an error of type int passing. Where's the location in the body and age? Then you say input should be a valid integer and able to pass string as an integer. So now if we come here and change this to 20, execute, it should work perfectly, return name and age to us. But now there's also an issue. Whenever we run this post endpoint, we want to also add that to this list here. And let's just write the logic for that. So we first need to get the new ID. So to do that, we just get the previous ID of the previous ID we have there. We're going to do ID equals to users minus 1. So get ID like this. And then we are going to say ID plus equals 1. Then I'm going to say, all right, users to append. What do you want to append to user? I want to append this create user data we have here. But then you have to know that we are going to get it as a type of user create. So we have to turn that from user create to a dict. So to do that, we just have to do data dot model dump like this. Or instead, you can just do this instead. Don't let me overcomplicate things. So you do ID is equals to ID like this. We do name is equals to data.name like this. Then we also have age is equals to data.age or 0 if nothing is passed. And now we can just return our data, but then we also have to pass in the ID. So I can just do users like this and we return the last one. Since we know that the last one is what our user is going to currently be. So we just run this, we have execute. And now we have Shazy as part of our users. We can come here now and list all our users and we should get Shazy too as part of it. But all of this should last as long as we don't make any change here. Once you make change here, so FastAPI off the server and restart the server, which means everything in the RAM, everything in your memory will be gone. And now if you try to get Shazy again, you should not get it anymore because it has been reset, it has been changed. If you come here, create user and you create Shazy again, it should be there in as long as the server has not restarted. So I think you should have seen an issue here now. Our data is not persistent, it's not saving, and it's changed and it gets deleted whenever the server restarts. Notice that this only happens whenever the server restarts, not when you reload the FastAPI listing. As long as the server is still running, all our data is intact. And yeah, Shazy should still exist. All right, now let's add 2 more endpoints. So we are going to do the put endpoints for editing of data. We are going to do the delete endpoint for deleting of data. So first things first, I'm going to do the delete endpoint. So I'll do at app.delete and say slash users like this. And also want to get the user ID that we're deleting. async, then delete user, and we're going to do user ID now because we're going to be of type integer. And so now let's write the logic to delete. So to delete, what you just have to do is to do for user in users, if user that gets ID equals user ID, I want to do users the remove that particular user that I just gotten. The user is the remove user, and then I want to return a simple message. Let me see. Right now, message. No, I think I should return this particular message. Only if the user was found and deleted. So I'll just push this in. User has been deleted. And whenever we could not return any message, we do not see any user, we want to raise a 404 error as before. And we say that the user we are trying to delete was not found. We do status code like this is status dot for not found error. And then we're going to put a detail. User with ID not found. So now we can come here to test our new route. We need to reload our stuff. And here we see we have a new stuff in our documentation. We can try it out. And in our user ID here, we can just pass in a user ID, we can type 1 and execute. So now 1 is deleted. If you try to delete 1 again, user with ID, built-in function ID not found. Let's come back here to me. Oh, sorry, you're supposed to pass user ID, not ID. User ID not found. Let's execute this anymore. It has been deleted because we restarted the server. It's created it again. Now we try it one more time. User with ID 1 not found. So an assignment for this particular thing is for you to just work on the for you to work on the update route yourself. So it's just going to be like this create user. The difference is that instead of post, it's going to be a put or patch. If you know what put is, put means you want to update that particular thing. Of patch is basically means you want to partially update it. So go ahead and try to do that. If you are unable to do that, you can come back to this video to see how I do it. So pause the video, try to do it, come back to see how I've done it. All right, perfect. Welcome back. So in case you're unable to go ahead with creating the update user endpoint, this is what it basically looks like. At app.put/users, we're also going to get the user ID we want to update for. And then we are going to use we are going to create a function that gets in the user ID and also gets in the data I want to update with. So we can use this user create, or we can create a new class here and say class user update just to make sure stores are optional. But I don't think that's necessary here. In this case, we can do /user update, and then once we've gotten that, we say for user and users, if the user has the same ID, you want to change the name to whatever data the name is and the age to whatever data the age is. So, yep. Then return user. All right, perfect. So just come here and reload. And boom, we have a new put endpoint here. So how do we test that this work? We try it out. Let's first get one particular user. Let's get user with ID of 1. See what that user consists of, 1 John Doe, and then the age. Now I want to change the user of ID of 1 to Shazy, and then 21. Execute this. Shazy, the name is now Shazy, and the age is now 21. Now come here, get user and execute. And here we have the name is Shazy, the age is now 21, unlike before. So here now we have a simple a simple, fast API server, basically doing everything you might want to do. But continuing on with this video, we are going to improve on that, and we are going to work on making this more robust, persisting our data to our database instead of just storing it as a list of objects here. And yeah, basically, we're also going to be splitting up this .py file. We are going to be splitting it up into separate other smaller files to make our project more structured and more maintainable, basically.